22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
Welcome. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. Bear with us while I work on some technical difficulties while I'm talking to you. Okay. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com, giving you that real talk for the community since 2014. Okay. Okay, I get to be on this side of the room for a few minutes while we work on some technical difficulties. It's always a beautiful thing when I can sit on this side of the room. So we had a few guests. We had a few changes today. We were going to have the show that Damon Jones told you about with Charles Billups, and we were going to deal with some issues dealing with New York City, the mayor's race in New York City, everything going on, but that has been postponed. But we do have a special guest, a host that we've had come on several times, Charles Stern from Red Blue Talk. We'll be discussing a few things, the Mueller's report, maybe the AG's Senate testimony. And, of course, we're going to get into the local scene. Dr. Bob will be in the building shortly. The lovely Lorraine Lopez is not here today, so she'll be back with us next week. What happened this week? Let's see. Congratulations to Cynthia Turnquest Jones for a successful event yesterday. Let Girls Learn at the Mount Vernon Public Library, yesterday afternoon. It was a great event. It was great to see a lot of the ladies come out there working with the kids. Nesta and her new Flex princesses were there. Nas Duncan was there. Also had the legendary DJ Jazzy Joyce, who was there. And special shout out to DJ Nikki, a friend of the show, Dwayne Brown, former president of the Chamber of Commerce. His daughter is getting into DJing, and she was the DJ for yesterday's event. And she got a couple of pointers and got to take some pictures with the legendary DJ Jazzy Joyce, and that was a beautiful thing. I definitely took a picture of that. That'll be in the next issue. I've already told you, as you've seen, from March and April, we switched from releasing the paper on the 1st to releasing the paper on the 15th. On or about the 15th. The next issue is due out Friday, this Friday coming up, which is actually the 10th. But it'll be out before the 15th. Should be everywhere but by the 15th. For those who still are trying to get their ads in, you have till Tuesday night. So I need your artwork and your payment before Tuesday night. After that, and you know what? And if you pay electronically, I'll give you an extra 10% discount. So hit us up. Any questions, you don't know how to reach us, blackwestchester@gmail.com. All you politicians running in the primary trying to get your ads in, you have till Tuesday night. Call me after the show. Email us, blackwestchester@gmail.com. I'm about to go play musical chairs and switch back to my side of the room. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, huh? Yes. So now I'm back in the commander's seat. Okay. Okay, so now I'm back. You know what? While we're waiting for Dr. Bob to come in, I'm going to invite Charles Stern to come into the room. We're going to start him off. We're going to just start talking about, I want to, I know he had done a report. He broke down the Mueller report. Yeah, and I wanted him to discuss that, and I wanted to discuss that with him. Any chair you want to sit in. I wanted to discuss that with him, and we had the recent testimony of the AG, who I think was kind of a sham as far as I was concerned. I think I got, just before I get started, I gotta say, back there, I gotta say I'm a little, these little Senate hearings, I look at them and we have to get, I know I'm asking for a lot, but this bipartisanship, I mean, I guess that's what you call it, where one party is asking whatever the questions they're supposed to be asking. So this was about the Mueller report, and the Republicans were asking questions about everything else, the Hillary Clinton emails, what Obama didn't do, and all this other stuff that had nothing to do with the Mueller report. And I don't think that it was a great. I really, I barely got through it, to be honest. So, welcome to the show, Charles Stern.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to come on here, AJ. I do appreciate that. It's always fun coming on People Before Politics. I tried to tell my small but growing fan base.
Right, I saw that on Instagram, and
yeah.
I put the information at the bottom how they can, Facebook. So for all those know, you can check us out on my Facebook page, and it can be shared on anybody else's Facebook page, AJ Woodson. We are now live. We're now broadcasting live on YouTube.
I didn't realize that.
Yes, the Black Westchester YouTube channel.
Oh, great.
We're broadcasting live right now.
Okay,
and,
so this goes out on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously.
Yes.
That's
so
great.
it's live on. So if you go to YouTube, you look up Black Westchester, and you'll see Black Westchester live stream, and it'll say live, and you can. I have it pulled up. It's on right now.
Oh, that's excellent.
And again, we're on Facebook. The feed sometimes doesn't kick in right away, but we are live on Facebook. Yes. And again, we're on Facebook. Shut that down. That means one of my live streams is on. Okay. So real quick, shout out to Louise Cherico. She said hello. Johnny Button Jr., what's up, my brother? Never miss an opportunity to give that brother a shout out. If you don't know who he is, go to blackwestchester.com. In the center of the front page, you will see a story from prison to platinum.
Okay.
It tells his story. Very inspirational story. Everybody read that and go see him to go get your car washed at Platinum Car Wash. Cynthia Greaves said, greetings, AJ. D. Wilson said, good evening, AJ. Cheryl Brownlee, Gail Baxter, Glenn P. Butler are among the checklist.
All right.
And kaboom, guess who stepped up in the room?
Hello.
To Cal, Dr. Bob.
Good evening, everyone.
A.K.A. Brooklyn Bob.
AKA Brooklyn Bob is in the building. So I'm passing it on to Charles, and I just did my little intro, and Bob, we're getting ready to get into a little bit about the Mueller report and the AG's Senate testimony. So I want to
Right.
discuss that briefly before we get into the local issues. Yes, your
Okay.
mic is on. Yes.
All right.
Mic sounds nice. Check one. Go ahead. Go ahead, Charles.
So, look, what can I say? I mean, it's just been an onslaught. You know, I work from home sometimes, not all the time, but a lot. And it's, you know, I try to take a break every now and then. I love watch CNN. I go back to work. It's very hard to concentrate when this stuff comes on.
Absolutely.
It's just completely consuming. And then to watch the Judiciary Committee members in the U.S. Senate questioning William Barr this week, I couldn't take my eyes off.
Right.
I mean, just so fascinating. And then it also winds into the presidential campaign because you had Kamala Harris there.
Right.
I think at one point
Cory Booker asked questions.
if I'm not mistaken, I saw Amy Klobuchar in there at one point.
I'm not sure. You know what? I did turn on and off because the Republicans were pissing me off when they were just lauding him with compliments about what a great job he was doing and all that stuff.
It's an absolutely upside down and crazy town situation down there. And so what happened basically is, this is my interpretation, but I'm not far off from what a lot of other people are saying. You have the Attorney General of the United States,
Right.
who is basically taking a position to defend an individual, namely the President of the United States.
Right.
So there's this multi-hundred-page report, which was redacted but eventually released. He issues,
But not fully released.
because it's been redacted. But then, a week after the thing is completed, the Attorney General issues they call it a summary, but it wasn't actually a summary. It was a statement of the essential findings.
Right.
Right? But the world thinks of it as a summary. They read that, this is a summary of what's in it, but it's actually not a summary. And it's so upside down and fixed and broken that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, sends a letter on March 27th to the Attorney General of the United States, who is, I guess, a longtime colleague of his. And this came up during the questioning. So this was the most fascinating aspect of the questioning to me, was that there's this letter by Mueller to Barr that, in essence, says, "Bill, what are you doing? What are you doing?" Right now, I have a copy of it.
And
I'm going to read a little of it.
Real quick, I just want to let you know,
Yep.
Damon K. Jones is tuned in via Skype. What's up,
Oh,
David?
wonderful. Hey, hello, Damon.
Hey, how you doing?
We're dealing with the Mueller report and the AG Senate testimony
Okay.
right now. Go ahead, Charles.
So I've got this, and by the way, they kept on referring all week. You're talking about the letter. Right. It's a short letter. Basically it's a one pager. The second page is nothing but a signature, and basically I'm going to read you a little bit of it. So he says here, "I previously sent you a letter, blah blah blah. We had also marked an additional 2 sentences for review and have now confirmed that the 2 sentences can be released publicly. Accordingly, the enclosed documents are in a form that can be released to the public, consistent with the legal requirements and departmental policies. I am requesting that you provide these materials to Congress and authorize their public release at this time." And he doesn't want to do it. And then this is the letter which Bill Barr referred to as, and I quote, "snippy." And I don't understand how the most important law enforcement person in the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, can refer to special counsel who's operating under his control as snippy. It seems too small to me. It seems something's broken.
I feel like his all credibility is going to hell. I feel like he's joined the law firm of Giuliani and Barr, people who once had a glowing reputation of what they used to do, that are doing anything to now just defend the president, and at any cost they don't care. They know what they're saying is full of it, but they're doing whatever they're doing to protect the president. Because Giuliani, I mean, used to prosecute the mob and do all these things, and half the things he's saying he knows are not true.
So I have thoughts on that. Okay, so Giuliani is part of a cabal of people who, at some point in their career, were super highly respected people. We may have had individual differences with policies that they undertook. I understand that, but they were up there, right? These people were
He
up
was
there.
America's mayor at one point.
Absolutely. Now he's reduced himself to being a sycophant for the President of the United States, and he's not the only one. So in this letter, the special counsel says, we communicated that concern to the department on the morning of March 25th. He's referring to the fact that the March 24, the letter summary that the department, meaning the Department of Justice, sent to Congress and released to the public late in the afternoon of March 24th did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of the special counsel's work and conclusions. We communicated that concern to the department on the morning of March 25th. Now, there is public confusion about the critical aspects of the results of our investigation. Stop there for 1 second. What he's saying is the public doesn't know what the bleep is going on.
Absolutely.
And they didn't get the gist of what was in the Mueller report, which is why I did that thing on my channel where I just read it. Right? I mean, it's a little boring, but you know what? A lot of people watched it. And it's particularly volume 2 is absolutely illuminating about, things that were going on. So it says here, this threatens this notion that people are confused. This threatens now, there is now public confusion about the critical. This threatens to undermine a central purpose for which the department appointed the special counsel, which is to assure full public confidence in the outcome of the investigations.
Right.
We don't have full public confidence in the outcome of the investigations because nobody understands the whole thing. Because, number one, they obfuscated the truth by releasing that ridiculous 4-page summary, which wasn't really a summary. It was a statement of critical findings.
Right.
But it led people to believe that it was a summary,
Right.
which is confusing everybody. So Congress really has got a major problem on their hands because the truth is not fully out. Further investigation is required. It's a big dance because if they push too hard, then Trump will become a sympathetic figure, which could impact the 2020 elections. But if they don't push hard enough, then they may not be prosecuting things that actually were illegal and future presidents could leverage.
I want to say real quick before about I think I don't think there's no way that they're going to please everybody, and they should not try to. There will be some people that will push back from them going after the president too hard. There will be people that don't feel like he's going after the president hard enough. So they just need to do what it is they need to do and let the chips fall as they may.
Right. I agree with that.
That's my feelings on it, Dr. Bob.
Well, let me say that firstly, I share Charles's unease about the current state of the Mueller investigation and the public's understanding of what special counsel Mueller actually concluded in his report. Moreover, it is deeply alarming that the Attorney General should take the unusual step of serving as a advocate for the president as opposed to ensuring the rule of law and full public confidence that the procedures in this highly unusual circumstance have been followed, such that we reach a fair, just, and credible outcome in terms of his investigation. So, yeah, in that sense, I tuned in to Charles's reading. I enjoyed it. I was happy to see that one of our local representatives would take the time out to kind of share with the broader public the findings and to go over it, because I think it's that important.
Thank you for tuning in.
I want
Yes.
to the beautiful thing about our show is that all the people get a voice, even the people that don't agree with us. I say, as I read Robbie Mann's comment. The 4-page report was released with minimum redactions. CNN's talking points yawn. There was no conclusion. Not to mention the report did not have to be released. Then he said, report, the first man gets the oysters, the second man gets the shell. That was, he is a Trump supporter, and he makes no bones about it.
Yeah, but here's the thing with these Trump supporters. So I hear a lot of this chatter, and it's striking to me that there are people, this question of obstruction of justice is real, okay? And I'm surprised that people aren't jumping up and down and standing on their heads more, even more than what we saw, because there's a temptation to dismiss what we saw this week, Bob, in those hearings as, political bloviating.
Right.
But I really don't think it is. I really think that there's a very serious constitutional crisis going on, and we should all be standing on our heads and screaming from the top of the rafters, why is this allowed to go on? So to my dear friends who think that Trump did not obstruct justice, that nothing really happened, Time Magazine had a good summary here, listing out, here are all the ways that Trump may have obstructed justice. 10 specific things that came out of the Mueller report which require further investigation. So here we go. And just in case, for anybody that's listening, like your friend there, who thinks that maybe there was not obstruction of justice, there certainly was obstruction of justice, and there's a whole bunch of questions that need to get investigated. 1, Trump asked FBI Director James Comey for loyalty. 2, Trump asked Comey to drop an investigation into Michael Flynn. 3, Trump fired Comey, which I think if he hadn't done that, we might not be sitting here talking about it right now. But he did. Trump fired Comey. That was potentially an obstruction of justice. Trump misrepresented why he fired Comey. That's alluding to the guy from NBC who did that interview.
Lester Holt.
Lester Holt, right.
Mm-hmm.
Trump asked intelligence officials to clear him. Trump tried to limit the Russia investigation. And wait, there's more. Trump asked Jeff Sessions to unrecuse himself from the Russia investigation, which was gone into great detail in Volume 2 of the Mueller report. And then Trump tried to fire Jeff Sessions. Trump indicated a misleading statement on the Trump Tower meeting. He tried to fire Mueller. He threatened his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, and it goes on from there. So, folks, it's all over the place. The mess is all over the floor. And Donald Trump can tweet again and again and again, no obstruction, no collusion, no obstruction. He can tweet it 35 times a day. And I think the other day he tweeted 60 times.
You know, one of the most important things that they also came out, part of the reason they can claim that there was no collusion is because the things he ordered to get done, the people that work for him didn't do it.
Right.
There's at least 4 or 5 of those situations.
Right.
And I'm going to read Robbie's last comment. The crisis starts on the left. That's where it all came from. I disagree. Secondly, let me just say before I get to Damon, I have 1 or 2 people. They want to know where they can listen and see your breakdown of the Mueller report. Either we can put a link in the comment section here, or you can tell them, and then we're going to get to that.
I'll type it in and tell you. Redbluetalk.com is my website. It's all on there. Or you can just go to youtube.com/redbluetalk, and it's all right there.
There you go, Luis. Go ahead, Damon.
Before I'm always getting into discussions with Robbie Mann, and unfortunately, Trump supporters don't read. That's just number one. And anybody that supports a president that says suicide bombers should get the death penalty, we should be very, very, very nervous. I sent you something on AJ so you could pull it up where I can't think of the judge's name from Fox, where he was very outspoken on the obstruction of justice of President Trump. It's just a minute clip. And
Napolitano.
Yes. How you pronounce his name?
It can't be Napolitano, because
who are you talking about, Dave?
the conservative judge who serves as an analyst. Essentially, he's a pretty conservative guy.
And he called out Trump for obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
It's a minute clip. I sent it to you on Facebook Messenger, so it'd be easy for you to, I guess, pull it up and play. And I think it's interesting for people to listen. You know, thank you, Robbie Napolitano.
Yeah, Napolitano.
So and he explains it from a legal perspective, and he also said obstruction of justice is just the law. Trump should be brought up on charges for that, but because the DOJ has taken the position that no sitting president can be charged, and there are legal scholars saying that's not true, criminally charged, and some legal scholars saying that's not true, but that's the position coming out of the Attorney General's office. So we have to deal with that. But if you could get that, it's just a minute clip. I don't know if you can bring it up.
Because of the way we're set up, The same thing that you're on, that people see, is the same screen I need to put the video up. So I gotta do one or the other.
All right. No, I want people to see this. I'll hang up because I think it's very important.
All right.
Very important.
All right.
Yeah.
And then we'll get it back.
All right, and then call back. Okay, switching screens real quick. Blow this up.
His former advisor and my former colleague at Fox, KT McFarland, to write an untruthful letter to the file knowing the government would subpoena it. That's obstruction of justice. When the president asked Corey Lewandowski, his former campaign manager, to get Mueller fired, that's obstruction of justice. When the president asked his then White House counsel to get Mueller fired and then lie about it, that's obstruction of justice. When he asked Don McGahn to go back to the special counsel and change his testimony, that's obstruction of justice. When he dangled a pardon in front of Michael Cohen in order to keep Cohen from testifying against him, that's obstruction of justice. Why not charge him? Because the Attorney General of the United States would have blocked such a charge. Because the Attorney General of the United States is of the view that obstruction of justice can only occur if you're interfering with a criminal investigation of yourself. But that's not what the obstruction statute says, and that's not what law enforcement believes. His former advisor and my former colleague at Fox, KT.
Well, that's exactly it. And he goes through even more things than I listed here from Time Magazine. So it's like, I don't know why people aren't standing on their heads and saying, at least, I don't know if the right verb is impeach, but certainly investigate, and they got to move forward with this thing. And now, Barr refused to come back and testify in front of the House, so they're going to have to subpoena him, which is a pretty ugly thing to have to do. But we're into some deep water here.
One of the other things is that we have to take into consideration. If we were talking about anybody else, if we were talking about anybody else other than the president, we would be talking about charging him, indicting him, anybody else. Like if we were talking about the mayor of a city, right, like Mount Vernon, or the governor of the state of New York or New Jersey, or a congressman or anything, any other person, or the head of a corporation, a Fortune 500 corporation. We were talking about anybody else without the words president or Trump in it. Handcuffs would have been on that person.
We'd be screaming,
and there would be charges would be filed.
People need to be screaming about it. And Damon, here's the deal: you got people sitting in prison for all kinds of things, all kinds of reasons, and people have to believe in the rule of law, or like, how do you justify it? And now you got corruption at the absolute highest levels of the United States government. If it isn't prosecuted and proven out one way or the other, I think it undermines the credibility of the entire system. It's a terrible situation.
I want to address this, and not only because Robbie said it, because I've heard other people say, well, $35 million in taxpayers' dollars. Let me tell you, how much money, show me how much money was spent on the Whitewater, how much money was spent on all the other investigations that didn't go nowhere. Like, that may not be the high end. Like, there might be some of these other investigations that didn't go nowhere either. Like, unless you're going to break that down, that's what I need to see numbers. For them people that give me that, show me where that ranks in the other big investigations that have happened on the money that they spent.
Here's the sad part. All right, we can't fall for political talking points. 35 million. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction of justice. Mueller referred, and let's not forget, there's still investigations going on. There's various investigations going on, and he referred it back to Congress, so Congress can do their constitutional job to investigate, and then whatever necessary charges or whatever they found is to investigate and possibly bring charges. That is the job of Congress, and it kills me when I hear these supporters, say these things. And number one, they haven't read the report. Number two, they fail to understand how government works. I mean, look, Trump has pimped the Constitution. He has pimped it to a way, and he knows how to obstruct. Whether he's trying to get Deutsche Bank not to give it and file lawsuits and this and that. Look, we've seen this before, right? I mean, it's going on right now in Mount Vernon.
Locally, right.
Right? We've seen these games being played before. But at the higher level of the presidency, you would think that people are outraged, but they are followers that are giving him a pass, just actually giving him a pass because they just want to be on the winning side. The hell with America and what we stand for, or what we allege to stand for, right? And what our influence will be after this throughout the world, right? Because this is a global economy, right? And our influence has definitely diminished throughout the world. That's why North Korea can play the games that they're playing, and that's why Russia can play the games that they're playing. I mean, this is an issue of a really national security.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Right, but you got people that call themselves patriots, actual patriots, right? Actual people, even the Freedom Caucus and all them fools allowing this to go on and not calling a spade a spade. You know, and this is the sad thing, you know. But unfortunately, you know, the chickens is going to come home to roost. I mean, they created a Trump. The Republican Party, throughout Obama's presidency, created the atmosphere for Trump, and now it's here, and they don't want to be man enough and woman enough to say that they made a mistake, that the country is going to hell.
And well, lastly, I want to say, you know, first, shout out to Hakeem Green from the rap group Channel Live, tuned in and put up the website dumptrump.global. Shout out to Jeff Monroe, Maria Carabella, Medea Evans, and everybody else who's tuned in. But the other thing is, you know, they keep talking about no collusion for the president doing that, and the investigation was a witch hunt and a waste of time. Look at all the convictions
Exactly
that it resulted in. There were crimes committed. I don't care what you
course.
like. You can't say I don't care how much money was spent. The people are going to jail for the crimes they committed that were exposed in this investigation,
right.
And more people are going to jail after following. And the Mueller report is a roadmap for all of those states that are filing the state, Tish James and all those other state agencies that are coming after, and what Trump fears, and why we see all the texting, the tweeting, and everything, he can throw the pardon, he can dangle that in front of people for the federal stuff. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the stuff happened in New York, and when New York comes after him, he can't pardon his family members. He can't pardon himself. He can't be pardoned for all these state, and he faces a lot of that. So
he will have years of legal problems.
Right, and this Mueller report will be the roadmap and the foundation to which a lot of these investigations will hurt him.
But there's a broader political problem, which is if the public doesn't fully understand it right now,
that's understood.
The pressure on the Congress, which is really the body that has to, because you said it, Mueller threw it over to Congress. He said Mueller threw that report over and said, I can't say, and I don't have the exact legal words, but in essence what he was saying was, I can't tell you whether or not to prosecute, but I can tell you this is what you need to look at.
Right.
What's
that, a roadmap?
Now, so that roadmap. Right. So Congress has to do something, and that's a very scary prospect, that Congress has to act and do something, because they're going to tend to do something under the pressure of public concern. And if the public is confused, if Barr was successful in obfuscating the truth and dulling down the impact of the Mueller report by issuing this baloney 4-page summary, that's potentially a very dangerous thing, because then these things are going to go unprosecuted. It's worrisome. Damon said something a minute ago that was spot on, which is, how does Trump manage to get these people like Barr to go along with him? It's incredible.
That's the people that
had
incredible. Great reputations. They were...
Right. So, New York Times, this was, in my opinion, the best article. The best thing the New York Times printed in the past 7 days was an op-ed piece that was written by James Comey. And I want to read you one small segment from it, but the title is James Comey: How Trump Co-ops Leaders Like Bill Barr. Accomplished people lacking inner strength can't resist the compromises necessary to survive this president. And then he breaks it down into terms that I was able to easily understand. He says, amoral leaders have a way of revealing the characters of those around them, blah, blah, blah. But more often, proximity to an amoral leader reveals something depressing. I think that's at least part of what we've seen with Bill Barr and Rod Rosenstein. Accomplished people lacking inner strength can't resist the compromises necessary to survive Mr. Trump, and that adds up to something they will never recover from. It takes character like James Mattis's to avoid the damage, because Mr. Trump eats your soul in small bites. Now, indulge in one more minute of this. It starts with your sitting silent while he lies, both in public and private, making you complicit by your silence. In meetings with him, his assertions about what, quote-unquote, everyone thinks and what is, quote, obviously true, wash over you, unchallenged, as they did at our private dinner on January 27, 2017, because he's the president and he rarely stops talking. As a result, Mr. Trump pulls all of those present into a silent circle of assent.
And I need you, can you just read the one sentence that it starts with your silence, that sentence, because I wanted to address that.
Accomplished people lacking inner strength can't resist the compromises.
No, below that it says it starts with your silence.
It starts with your sitting silent while he lies. He lies, both in public and in private, making you complicit by your silence.
Now,
so he tells a lie, you don't say anything, and then he says, I talked about that with AJ 3 weeks ago. He didn't say a word.
And that's where I wanted to go. And this is a conversation that I've had on a local level with Sean Patterson Howard. Why? Because she sometimes can't understand why people will come at her on Facebook, and she will get the comments that come at her about, because she didn't do those things and it was him, and, she left the administration. But there were many people and many incidences where he had these press conferences or he had these meetings with people, and she sat at the side of him or stood right beside him, and her silence, what you just said, people take that as you being co-signing it. I mean, if you're not speaking up against it, and that's something that she's going to continue to have to deal with a certain part of the population of Mount Vernon. Some of them who have been the targets of Richard Thomas, the Thomas administration, and she was there. All they know is they were targeted, and she was there, and she did nothing to help them, but said nothing against it. That is one of the conversations that we've had several times. And again, when I say something, this is because I've said something to the person. So I'm not, trashing her. I'm just, this is what it is. This is one of the things that's going to be, she's going to have to, I think it can hurt her, maybe some debates and stuff. Right. But this is one of the things she has to deal with. And there's no talking it away. There's no avoiding it. You know what I'm saying? People see you there. So I just wanted to bring that up. Lastly, I wanted to say specifically to Robbie Mann. Robbie Mann was like, "Oh, I wish it could have been a fair and balanced show. I would have headed over there." Listen, Robbie, all love and respect to you, my brother, but you don't have that conversation with Fox News. So I'm not going to be MSNBC, and I'm not going to waste time going back and forth and we getting off the topics of the subjects that we want to talk about, because we allow Trump and the supporters to create this narrative and get us to talk about what they want us to talk about. That's not going to happen on this show. And again, you don't talk to the Fox crowd and say you wish that they were more fair and balanced and all that other stuff. So don't come to me like that. Yeah, but
AJ, even in one of those comments, I saw a comment there go by that said there were no indictments related to Russia, and that's simply not true.
That's not true.
Exactly.
So it's a matter of just, we see it again on the national level, the Thomas administration and Spezio specifically, just throwing stuff out there, and if you throw it out there enough, people actually believe it after a while. Or better yet, they muddy the waters so much that then you just don't know who to believe, and you just retreat, not thinking you can believe anybody. You don't know what's true and what's not true.
I wanted to add, so there's a couple of points that I think people need to bear in mind when they read the Mueller report and interpret the implications of its findings. Firstly, on page 2, there's a very interesting description of the actual evidentiary standards that the special counsel used and what kind of conclusions the public is supposed to draw about the tentative findings that he offers. And I want to read a paragraph.
Absolutely.
The report describes actions and events that the special counsel that the special counsel's office found to be supported by the evidence collected in our investigation. In some instances, the report points out the absence of evidence or conflicts in the evidence about a particular fact or event. In other instances, when substantial credible evidence enabled the office to reach a conclusion with confidence, the report states that the investigation established certain actions or events occurred. Robbie, this is for you, Robbie. A statement that the investigation did not establish particular facts does not mean there was no evidence of those facts. It's A. In other words, the absence of a firm conclusion does not mean that there was any absence of evidence. It means that it did not meet the legal threshold of beyond a reasonable doubt, which is required in order for a prosecutor to bring a case before a jury. So the special counsel is telling us, and anyone who has read volume 1, you just sort of thumb through the pages. The description of the number of contacts that took place between the Trump administration, representatives of the Trump administration, and various representatives of Russian governments or their operatives is absolutely stunning. And it is unthinkable, for example, that President Obama, when he was a candidate during 2008, would have been in talks with Muammar Gaddafi or some shit and, met with his representatives and had promises of dirt and would have met, because I want to be clear about this, because I don't think that people are really taking, either through ignorance, they do not know, or they're not taking seriously what transpired. Let's be clear. Carter Page was the target of a counterintelligence investigation. He was caught up in a counterintelligence investigation, the results of which had been released years before the president even ran. The fact that the president's internal security would have been so lax that you could have got someone who the FBI had actually collected information on because of their cozy association with known Russian operatives is stunning. I believe the name of the case was, I think it was Ghost. I can't remember offhand. I have my notes, but it's stunning. And people like Robbie Mann show profound ignorance of some of the basics of this. Now, we can let us put aside any kind of evidence that was collected in the immediate time frame of the 2016 election. Right. Carter Page's unusual status as someone, Damon, have you ever been a subject? Have you ever been caught up in a counterintelligence investigation to your knowledge?
No.
How about you, AJ?
Not as far as I know.
Not as far as, how about you, Charles? I mean, you take a survey of Americans, the number of Americans who ever had information gathered about them during the course of a counterintelligence investigation is minuscule.
A pretty small number of people.
Yeah. So that in and of itself was sufficient evidence for the government to suspect that something untoward was going on, if not between the candidate Trump, then certainly between candidate Trump's representatives and the Russian government.
And several people close to him, very close to him, have either gone to jail, been indicted, or pled guilty.
And if you read the Mueller report, Bob, you can see all those examples. There are examples all over the place where during the campaign, during the after the election, but before the inauguration.
Put your mic a little, turn it, and so it's facing you.
You know what? I think I do better when my headphones are on.
Okay,
so
yeah.
really
Because a couple people asked me to turn your mic up a few times. Yeah.
So if you look at the Mueller report, there are these episodes. There was the pre-campaign, campaign, pre-inauguration, and then post-inauguration. And in each of those episodes, these people had access to Russians, and I guess if you just look at this thing from 5,000 feet, if you're in the midst of a campaign, even a local campaign, and you suddenly a bunch of intelligence lands in your lap that you probably shouldn't have, you need somebody with a moral compass to say, hey, wait a second, this doesn't belong with us. We shouldn't even be looking at it. Don't even look at it. Don't even look at it because it gets you in a lot of trouble. Don't look at it. Give it to your lawyer. Give it to the campaign chairman. Give it to the chairman of the party. But don't touch it. Don't touch it. We shouldn't have it. Don't get involved with it. Those are the kinds of interactions that the Russians were having with Trump people during the campaign. And the Mueller report goes into a great deal of detail. And they never said no. Papadopoulos, that other guy who's in prison right now. Manafort. These guys had access to people, and they knew what was going on with WikiLeaks. They knew when WikiLeaks was about to dump a whole bunch of new information that they had stolen about the Democratic, the DCCC. They knew all this stuff, but they never said, don't go near it, it's radioactive. They ran toward it, and they assumed that they'd get away with it, and right now they are getting away with it. And I think that's just terribly wrong. And if you look at it from a distance, even if you are pro-Trump, you have got to see that was completely wrong.
I just want to say also the Mueller was held to a certain limitation in what he can actually investigate. He was given guidelines to investigate, where Congress has a broader brush to paint, and even the state AG's office have a broader brush to paint than he did. And I think he did the best he could within the limitations that he had, and provided a wealth of information. You know, I
do, but you know where I have to acknowledge one thing that I think is the reason why this is so hyper-partisanized.
Who can't you hear? Alita Johnson, go ahead. Which one of us can't you hear? Go ahead.
I think one of the reasons why this thing is so hyper-partisanized is because the Hillary Clinton campaign was not clean as a whistle either.
Absolutely. And
people are still hurting from that. You know, there was that horrible episode with Bill Clinton in the back of the airplane with Loretta Lynch, and on and on and on, and there was a lot of things. The question about who paid for the dossier and who they bought it from, and on and on. It's never ending. It's a bottomless pit of bad. And unfortunately, that has hyper-partisanized it. It has caused people on both sides to dig in deep to their partisan position and not be able to see objectively how horrible this is for the Constitution, for belief in the rule of law, and for and just democracy in general. It takes a real a beating as a result of this, and it's unfortunate that now we're in this situation where they're saying, well, you can't impeach Donald Trump because you can't get enough votes in the Senate. I don't know what to say. I was a kid when Watergate was going on, so I don't remember all of it, but I've read about it since.
Right.
When things got bad enough, there were Republicans who came over and said, it's over.
Right.
On that note, I also want to read another excerpt from the special counsel's report because it sheds light on the question of whether or not Congress should exercise its investigatory oversight power to conduct further investigations of what occurred. And here we go. Now, again, this speaks to people like Robbie Mann, who seem to feel that the report issues a definitive finding. Here we go. Further, this is from page 10, the last two paragraphs of the special counsel's report on page 10, volume 1, page 10. Further, the office learned that some of the individuals we interviewed or whose conduct we investigated, including some associated with the Trump campaign, deleted relevant communications or communicated during the relevant period using applications that feature encryption or do not provide for long-term retention of data or communication of records. In such cases, the office was not able, in addition, some individuals invoked their Fifth Amendment rights against compelled self-incrimination or were not, in the office's judgment, appropriate candidates for grants of immunity. And so, quote, accordingly, while this report embodies factual and legal determinations that the office believes to be accurate and complete to the greatest extent possible, given these identified gaps, the office cannot rule out the possibility that the unavailable information would shed additional light or cast in a new light the events described in this report. We were not able, partly because of the efforts of some of the subjects of the investigation, to either avoid testimony in court or essentially destruction of evidence. They used encryption applications that destroyed evidence, and therefore it comes as no surprise that the special counsel was not able to reach a definitive conclusion. And the special counsel says here, if additional investigations occur, it may shed light. It may shed further light on the events that are described in this report. In other words, investigation should go on if we want to get to the bottom of this.
In other words, Congress, you better investigate.
So, moving forward, shout out Monique James. Also, real quick, can everybody who's tuned in just let me know, can you hear? They said my mic and Charles' mics are a little low. So anybody else, if you can just say we hear you clearly and we can't hear you in the comment section, I greatly appreciate you. Moving forward, do you think that it is very important for Mueller to testify before Congress or the House?
Absolutely.
And why?
Why? Because he understands more about it than anybody else does, and we need to hear firsthand what what was his thinking in the delivery of this report. And we have a 400-page report to read, but we're going to want to hear some specifics about how information was transmitted and how it was processed. And I think that it would be enlightening to hear from him. Absolutely.
One of the things that I definitely remember is, what was it, Kamala Harris, her questioning. She said when you came, it was left up to the AG whether he was going to proceed further with, the investigation or charges or whatever.
Yeah.
She asked him, did you look at the evidence?
Kamala Harris.
Did you break down? Did you take a look at any of the evidence that helped Mueller come to the conclusion that he came to?
Yeah.
And he said no.
Well, amazingly,
he had no need to.
He hemmed and he well, if you mean the answer is no. The answer is no. And now let's talk about that Kamala Harris questioning, because in my opinion, it was a great moment. She was the big winner of the whole week, in my opinion, because what I saw there is she could definitely be the Attorney General of the United States. She could definitely be the Vice President of the United States, and she probably could be the President of the United States. Now, I may have some opinions about that.
Right.
I'll share with you my opinion if you're interested, but we know that this is someone who is the Attorney General of California for 2 terms. She's been in the Senate. She is qualified. She could do Barr's job better than Barr. No question in my mind.
Absolutely. And what did you think about, what was the head of the Senate and the head of the committee?
Senator Graham.
Graham saying, no, we're not going to bring Mueller in. It's over.
Yeah.
We're not going to have no more of this.
You know what he is?
It's over now.
And I'll tell you why that is, because he's one of these people that James Comey is talking about in this article. He's one of these people that has lost his dignity and lost his mind, in my opinion. That he's just downdraft from Donald Trump, laughing at his jokes, playing golf with him, and he's up to his eyeballs in it, and probably doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie at this point.
I mean, I want to. I want to say, listen, it was a mistake for the Senate to even confirm Robert Mueller to serve as Attorney General of the United States, given the fact that he wrote a very lengthy memo.
Barr.
Barr. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Barr. To appoint Barr as the Attorney General of the United States, given the fact that he wrote a very lengthy memo in his capacity as a private citizen, weighing in on the validity of the special counsel's appointment and investigation when he did not have presumably any more facts regarding the underlying circumstances than were available to the general public. So he reached a definitive conclusion that the investigation was illegitimate before he even saw all of the material.
Many people said that was his audition. That
right.
was for the position.
And he should just it demonstrated a clear bias, and he should have been required to take an oath to recuse himself from any decisions regarding the Mueller investigation.
Yeah, I mean,
if he was going to be
one of the things I want to see if Mueller, because some of Barr's answers to questions are questionable, and it is still illegal to lie to the Senate, right? The Congress.
Yeah, you're under oath.
So
it's sworn testimony.
I would love to hear Mueller weigh in on some of those things that Barr said. No, I talked to Mueller. He had no problem with it. Some of his answers I would like to hear, because I think that we will see that he actually lied.
He's got to testify. The president, they have to deliver an unredacted copy of that report to Congress, even if it's not released to the public. The United States Congress should have it. There should be an unredacted report. Mueller should testify, and then they should continue to prosecute the president in these other 10 cases.
I think Graham did say, though, there was a copy in whatever room that they can go in, but they can't take it out of the unredacted report. I think he said that in the beginning.
So my understanding is there's a less redacted report.
Less redacted, right. Okay.
But not fully unredacted, but, that's usually reserved for a select group of congresspersons,
right.
The Gang of Eight, and my understanding is that they are restricted from sharing.
Right.
But here's the deal. There are supposed to be 3 co-equal departments of government, right? Legislative, judicial, executive, and in my opinion, the system of checks and balances can't work unless the special counsel's report has been delivered unredacted in its entirety to the legislative branch. And
one of the things you brought up, Watergate, one of the things why they do not want the unredacted report presented to the public, it was the public that caused those Republicans to
cave under pressure.
that they had the answer to. It was the public pressure that they eventually changed their mind. So you want to take that away. You want to limit that public pressure by the public never having it, by it never being fully exposed in the truth and transparent.
Right. And
you can, paint your own narratives as if they're doing. So what? I want to go into some local stuff. What do you see? What do you see is the next step that's going to happen, or what do you think should happen from here?
I think Mueller will testify. Mm-hmm. I think they will probably have to subpoena William Barr in order to get him in front of the House of Representatives. I think that this will continue to ramble on, and it's going to be ugly, and it's going to go straight into the election cycle, and it's going to be brutal, and I don't know how the Democrats are going to deal with it, because if the Democratic Party stands for investigation, interrogation, aggravation, then that's not a good brand either. So it's going to be a very delicate dance for Democrats for the next year and a half.
Actually, one of the questions I saw one of the MSNBC hosts asked its guest, do you think that maybe the House made the mistake of saying that they were going to have their whoever else asked the questions, they should have just got him in the seat, he wouldn't have been able to leave, and then sprung it on him? Or you need to remember that Barr won't go. Barr won't go to the House because he said the council. He's not going to allow council to ask him. Do you think that they should never? they should never have pre-warned him of that. They should have just had him there, and once he was in the seat, he wouldn't have been able to get up, and then whoever asked him questions asked him.
I understand you're asking kind of a tactical question.
I mean, that's what, and I sort of, I mean,
would it have gone differently if they didn't expose that information in advance? And my quick answer is, I don't think it matters. The right thing to do is to testify. Get it out there. He's not, William Barr is not the decider, in my opinion, about whether or not, I guess he's the decider on whether or not he should be prosecuted. I guess it's an interesting question. He is a decider. The problem is, I don't trust him. And a lot of people don't trust him. So you have a problem because you have a kind of a corruption at the highest levels of the government now. And I don't know how we move forward. There are going to be other big questions that are going to require an attorney general that you believe in.
Right.
And now you don't have that.
I want to speak to the same question, but go ahead real quick.
I don't think I think that the Democrats is making it harder than what it should be. Follow the process. Follow the breadcrumbs. Have your hearings. Stop talking about impeachment. Just have your hearings. You can't have impeachment unless you have the evidence to impeach. So just have your hearings and move forward. The more the public hear, right? If they got to subpoena Trump's former lawyer, if they got to subpoena Mueller, if they got to bring Cohen back in front, if they got to subpoena this person, that lady that was taking the notes, if they got to subpoena everybody, subpoena them. Subpoena them so the American public can hear their testimony and move forward. And they will make the decision. Because you're not going to be able to spin once Mueller comes and he speaks on his investigation and what he wrote. And not only, look, I wouldn't even just stop at Mueller. I'll subpoena the whole damn team. I want everybody to come in front of me and tell me
how they came to the conclusions they did by watching the evidence.
Exactly. Those that interviewed these people. I want to know, why'd you ask these questions? How do you get to this point? Not just from Mueller. I just want to, because he had a great team. And he had great experience, credible team. Bring them in front. I don't care if it goes all the way to 2020. I don't care. Just let the public hear. That's how you convince the public. You give them the information to act on. Because right now, what we have on the other side is spin doctors. Right.
Barr, both sides.
Yeah. Barr was just hired to spin it. That's all. I mean, and it's unfortunate because everybody says he had a great reputation. He was very credible. But everybody's going to remember him from his last dance. A bullshit artist. A bullshit artist. And for you to be the attorney general and for you to make a conclusion and you haven't looked at the evidence, you haven't looked at the data that Mueller has presented, you have done a disservice to yourself and the office that you hold. And I don't care, man. You have to look at the data to come to a conclusion. Right. Because maybe Mueller's conclusion was wrong.
I just want to say, just on a personal note, there have been times when Damon has given me information, told me about a story, and I had to have him show me, where did you get this from? Mm-hmm. Where does this come from?
Well, there's a process.
Show me the articles. Where's I need to see the court papers. And Damon's my partner. We run together. We good. You know what I'm saying? But I can't take verbatim that just because you said it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to, before I write it, I have to actually, and I ask everybody all the deep questions like, yo, you need to show me where that information is. You need to show me how much more should Barr have done that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just talking about an investigative story I'm working on. Like, there was so much more at stake with the Barr situation.
Well, this is it. This is just it, AJ. Congress has investigative powers for a reason, and it's the reason that Damon's talking about. And I think Jerry Nadler agrees with what Damon is saying. I think Kamala Harris agrees with what Damon is saying. I think a lot of people, Nancy Pelosi was saying that she felt that Barr should step down based upon the statements that he made under oath.
Step down or be fired.
It's
Yeah.
like unbelievable. So I think that there's the left side of the brain says this makes complete sense, but it's not without some political risk. And this is where I have to introduce an idea that might be marginally controversial. There's a 2020 election coming up. There's an imperative that this president be defeated for a whole variety of reasons. I can go into them, but you can read my mind. He's got to be defeated. He has to lose this election, or the consequences are almost unthinkable. Biden said something earlier in the week about how the country could sustain one term of Donald Trump, but 2 terms would be forever altering the character of the country. I'm paraphrasing, but it is in essence what he said. So if the Congress does its job, which it has to do based upon the criteria that Damon enumerated, and has to do that, if it in any way destabilizes or calls into question whether or not Donald Trump becomes defeatable in 2020, then it comes at a high risk. They got to do it. They have to execute this thing absolutely perfectly.
There's 2 things I want to say. One, it's unfortunate that a lot of our elected officials and politicians are so concerned about re-election and what will cause them from being re-elected that they don't do what they were first elected to do. Respect to, who was it, George Bush, the first George Bush. He lost that election because he made a promise, but it was something he had to do. And that decision, he knew he was going to lose the election, but it was the best thing for the country. I have a lot of respect for him. I didn't agree with a lot of things he said, but I have respect for
not to raise taxes.
Right, but he had to do. He could not keep that promise, and he knew not keeping that promise was cause him to lose the election as the incumbent. But he still did what was necessary to do. You have to make those decisions.
But think about how mild that is compared to what's going on
I
now.
know. I was just giving an example.
Yeah.
But secondly, since we were talking about defeating Trump, I know it's early, and we see a lot of this on the national media, so might as well do it now here too. The 3 of y'all, who do you see at this point that you believe actually have a chance to defeat Trump in 2020 of the candidates that are out now?
I say Biden. I'm going to stick with Biden. Look, we cannot dismiss the Midwest or the Middle America white vote. See, for some reason, the Democrats,
flyover states that they call them.
Yeah. Some reason the Democrats think just because they popping on the West Coast and the East Coast, California, New York, that's going to win. Right now, and I don't care about I don't care about the popular vote, because the popular vote does not win elections. You have to run the board. You have to run the board. And if you don't run the board, you're going to lose. If they didn't learn anything about Obama's 2 campaigns, he ran the board. He ran that board. So I don't understand why they said
Hillary did not, and that's why she lost.
No, Hillary, listen, let me tell you something. First thing, as we all know, like when you're dealing with like recovery, right, and you're dealing with drug addicts, right, the first thing you have to admit that you have a problem, right? One thing Democrats will refuse to admit that
Hillary was a bad candidate.
He was a bad damn candidate. Horrible candidate. And that was the main that was the main problem with the Democrats, and still the problem with the Democrats now, because they still haven't had that come to Jesus talk with themselves that Hillary was a bad candidate. Now moving forward, right? You have Kamala Harris, you have Cory Booker, which to me, he left Newark in shambles. I don't even know how he got to this national attention at this point. But he did. Twitter and Facebook can make a politician. So the whole thing, right? So they're not going to win in the Midwest. You need somebody that's going to, we never talk about, listen, the middle class and poor white vote went for Trump. Why did they go for Trump? Because he had this persona that he was a millionaire. He knew how to do things. He knew how to do everything. He promised them that he was going to keep jobs there. Now you see all these uneducated coal workers and all these factory workers. They don't have no jobs, right? They don't have no damn jobs, you know. And I tell Robbie, man, all the damn time, he does not have enough zeros in his damn bank account for Trump to be his president. He does not represent the poor white community. He doesn't give a shit about them because he don't give about them in New York. So we have to have a candidate that's going to talk, that's going to have the language to talk to those people so they can understand that this president has never been for them. Has never been for them. But then two, Kamala Harris can't do it. You know, Kamala, and unfortunately everybody said, well, why do you want, you want to support another white guy when you got black candidates? Yeah, because I want to win. You're not sending Kamala Harris down into those hicks and those backyards and all that. She's not gonna talk their language. They're not gonna understand where she's coming from. That's why Bernie, people get mad at Bernie. I'm gonna say this real quick, and I'm gonna shut up after this. People get mad at Bernie for not supporting reparations, right? But Bernie's smart. He's not gonna come out and support reparations and then he needs those hick countries. Because he's not gonna vote for them.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to win, or do you want to placate to people's fantasies and feelings? That's what we got. That's what we have to discuss.
So I want you to ask you, who do you think has a chance to win and why? Bob, you want to go?
I'm pretty much in agreement with Damon. I think that, yeah. Well, I hate to say it, I do not think that. Yeah, I think that a black candidate will be electable nationally.
So do not?
No, I don't think a black candidate is going to be able to defeat Trump. I think it is only going to further play into the racial antipathy that the president has whipped up. And I think, although I most certainly am of the view that one reason why the president won is precisely because there was a desperation on the part of many Americans for economic policies that would finally reverse the decades of wage stagnation, job insecurity, shredding of the safety net that has characterized our political generation. Nevertheless, there still was a strong appeal to racism that underlied and was inseparable from it. The president represents a kind of nativist populism, which is...
What does that mean for the layman?
Nativism is, I am only supportive of people who are born in the country.
Okay.
So there have been a series of nativist populism, and populism means the rule of the masses over the rule of the elites. So essentially what you have here in the United States is Republicans have their Southern strategy, and it is a strategy, and if anyone who is doubtful of it should read the original treatise that lays out the Southern strategy by the then Republican analyst Kevin Phillips. I think that's Phillips, yeah, in the 1970s. He was a Nixon aide and really formulated the Southern strategy, and essentially what it sought to do was to make up for losses of its electoral support by appealing to disillusioned Democrats who were, who essentially either don't like black people or are very fearful of them. And so we're not going to be able to get around that. I think anyone who, it's what Marx might have called people who are supportive of reparations utopian socialists. It's far-fetched. There is no way that any national candidate in the current climate will be able to win if they are making reparations a plank in their policy proposal. The American people don't even want to give black people equal rights, no less monetary compensation for the years
For the original sin. of this country.
Who is going to agree to that? You could make all of the moral case, the moral case that you want to your blue in the face, but it is a surefire loser in my judgment, and I do not support it at all. If we want to be serious about dealing with the historical injustices that have been visited upon African Americans, we need to elect a Democrat. We need to create a political climate which is congenial to the enactment of progressive policies. We're not going to get a progressive in the office if essentially, you know, what some white people are going to cast as socialism for undeserving black people who apparently whose parents were not enslaved and grandparents were not enslaved.
So, you know, it's fun to come on and spend a little time here. Maybe it would be more fun if I disagreed more. But I come around to it in a slightly different way. It's got to be Biden. You know, and he could blow up. Something could go terribly wrong, and then the course would need to change. But, you know, May 5th, 2019, from where I sit, it's got to be Biden. It has to be. And here's why I say this. Because I recognize, and I think that his biggest challenge is the Democratic left right now. Because if he comes through that primary all banged up and bruised and brutalized and talking about how his daughter did drugs and his son did this and that,
tough time.
It's going to be tough. And the problem is that the premium on his victory is higher than I've ever seen in a presidential election, because you have a president. The presidency is corrupt. It is corrupt all the way through right now.
Through and through, Robbie.
Foreign leaders don't respect our presidency. They don't respect the president of the United States, and we've seen this again and again from the Western European leaders.
What's dangerous, they don't feel, allies don't feel we have their back. Like, allies don't trust us. Like, you know, they just that's very dangerous, because we may seriously need them in something monumental. Just, you know,
the world is an incredibly dangerous place. This is my view of it. This is, you know, I'm just talking about some different things. I'm coming around to the same answer that you are and the same answer that Damon is. But the reason why I think the stakes are so high is because the world is on fire. I mean, it's pretty much always on fire, but it's especially on fire now. And you have to have a leader in the presidency who has the respect of foreign leaders. And if you don't have that, you have an incredibly dangerous situation.
Welcome to the show, Joe Spezio.
So if you have a president who is at odds with the NATO alliance, which has basically glued the world together for the last 65 years, there's no telling how dangerous that is. If you have a president who's willing to back out of the Paris Accord on the environment, there's no describing how dangerous that is. So if there's things that you don't like about this candidate, if there's individual things that you don't like, he's not this enough, he's not that enough, he didn't treat Anita Hill nicely enough, or he had a voting record on this or that. What I'm saying is somebody needs to stand up. It's probably Biden himself, and say, America, cut the bull. Fill in the rest, okay? Cut it. Just cut it. Because in 2019, the stakes are so high for getting rid of this guy that you have to hold your nose and vote for me. If there's something that you don't like about me, if I'm a little creepy, or I touch young girls the wrong way when I'm on camera, and I do this and I do that, you kind of have to, like, stop all the nonsense, right? It's got to stop. And suspend that foolish narrative. Because if the cost of that turns out to be that Trump is reelected, then we are going to turn out to be, over the next 10 to 50 years, one of these countries like Hungary, like Italy, like a bunch of other places where they have these populist, authoritarian leaders, and things go terribly, terribly wrong, and everyone loses. So it's got to be Biden. It probably needs to be Biden and Kamala Harris, and they have to assemble a coalition that loosely resembles what Obama and Biden had. Because in my opinion, Joe Biden is a flawed character, but he benefited greatly from his association with Barack Obama, and I believe that they benefited from each other's political orientations. And so I think that it's possible to cook up a similar situation with Kamala Harris, who is eminently qualified. It certainly doesn't hurt that she's a woman, and that's something that America has a high premium on, putting a woman in the White House or near the White House. And I think that potentially could be a winning coalition if they could just glue it together and hold it together long enough. But it's not going to be Beto O'Rourke. It's not going to be the piano-playing guy, Mayor Pete. Forget it. It's entertaining in 2019, but that's not going to be a winning reality. But the progressive left needs to get out of the way. And I think that the Bernie factor, that needs to burn itself out like earlier than it did last time, because that potentially could be calamitous.
Now, just putting it out there, if for whatever reason it cannot be Biden, and Biden is no longer available, something happened to him, nobody's promised tomorrow, no, not wishing any bad will, who? If not Biden, who? If Biden's no longer an option, who?
Probably Kamala Harris.
Bob?
I'm uncertain. I'll have to wait until
I got you. I stumped you.
It'll be tough.
Until the primaries begin to unfold. I mean, I do not think, as much as I am a progressive left, I'm a member of the progressive left. I consider myself to be an heir to many of the sort of fading revolutionary traditions, including Marxism. However, America has always been anathema to any discussion.
Okay, so break that down. What's that word for those
we
that
don't
know?
we don't like it.
Okay,
It's repulsive to us. So anyone who fashions themselves as the standard bearer of socialism, or even a democratic socialism, which I fully embrace, I think is going to be a hard sell to the American public, and is going to be very easily cast as a boogeyman on the part of the Republicans. That's what they've done. The Republican Party for the past 70 or 80 years, the main appeal that they have had is a kind of anti-communist credentials, whether it be in terms of domestic policies here at home that are opposed to a generous safety net of the kind that was first instituted by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or it is their opposition to any kind of peace with the once socialist world. That's what they've ran on for 70 years, and they will continue to run on that, even though the specter of socialism is dead.
Right.
I want to go back to...
Bob, 2 seconds here, okay? The economy is incredibly strong right now. I don't have it in front of me. I should have pulled it up, but Donald Trump tweeted out some statistics.
Put your mic closer.
Donald Trump tweeted out some statistics. I think it was this morning. Lowest unemployment rate since 1965, highest GDP in years, stock market is roaring, on and on and on and on and on. If he keeps up with that, if the economy is strong, this guy has a chance of getting reelected.
Right, but what's
so
amazing,
what I'm saying is that narrative.
For the economy as strong as it is, he's the president with the lowest approval rating with the economy so strong.
His approval rating's not that low. It's like 40%. It's enough to get reelected.
No, it's enough to get reelected with all the
Yeah, he could get reelected, and that's the reality.
But presidents who
have
have had strong economies have had much.
I hear you,
okay.
but that speaks to nobody believes him.
Right. That was the point I was bringing
A significant number of people don't believe him, but if they believe that the economy is strong, that's what Hungary is like. They have a guy there named Viktor Orban, Orban is a populist. He's like Donald Trump of Hungary, but worse. And you know what? They've got actual members of the Nazi Party in their parliament. Okay, so fast forward a few years, Donald Trump gets reelected. Right? What kind of country is this going to be? Now, you see these guys, this thing that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, where they were marching with the tiki torches and just chanting Nazi slogans and all that stuff. What happens when some of those guys get elected to Congress? What are we going to have then with a president like this?
I was watching Black Klansman last night. Very good movie. I saw it for the first time. And David Duke talking about getting his people in. And to talk about just that very thing, getting people in Congress and possibly even running for the president.
And it could happen.
So that was just for that conversation. I want to get into local a little bit, and someone asked a question, so I figured I'd let you answer it instead of me answering it for. It was like, is this Charles Stern that used to be down with Amani Public School? So you could just speak to that briefly, and then I want to make it go local after that. Go local.
Were you part of the Amani Public Charter School? Yes. My wife and I founded the Amani Public Charter School together. That is correct. That is me. Same guy.
So I just wanted you to answer that. Now, they say all politics is local, so I know I wanted to spend more time, but, I wanted to talk a little bit about the local scene. We got an important mayoral race in Mount Vernon, and I know there were some things that you wanted to speak on.
Sure.
Full disclosure, you... What a district leader? Were you a district leader for years or something?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of jobs like that. Yeah. So I was a Democratic district leader in New Rochelle, and I was a Democratic district leader in Mount Vernon for a while when I lived there. I was a district leader in New York City for a short period of time. So I'm familiar with the mechanics of parties and campaigns and petitions and all that stuff. If that's what you're driving toward.
And one thing before I forget. I did want to bring, since I got the letter this week, and a lot of people have asked me in the street in the last 2 days about Delia Farquharson being on the primary, being on the ballot for the primary. There was a letter that went out and from the Board of Elections. I'm getting ready to pull it up right now. Basically, I guess if a person makes a challenge, the Board of Election answers them back in a letter. And this challenge was done by Edith Charles and for Delia Farquharson. And the Board of Elections went through the petition, which was in 2 volumes. Volume 1, the objections were sustained for 176 not registered, 67 not registered, address given, and it goes on and on and on. 304 statement of witness defection, equaling a total of 711 objections sustained in Volume 1, and in Volume 2, it was an equal of that's page 2, I think 200 and something, 215. Adding up to total objections sustained 926 of the 1,503 signatures, leaving her a total of 577, which is short of the 750 signatures needed. And the Board of Election has officially said that the name of Delia M. Farquharson will not appear on the Democratic primary ballot for the public office of mayor in the city of Mount Vernon in the June 25th, 2019 primary election. Now, I don't know the process if she can appeal any of this or whatever, but as of right now, the Board of Elections is officially stating that she will not be on the ballot. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to bring that up because I've had several people ask me over the last 48 hours this weekend while I was out and about. So
she had a petition challenge and she didn't make it.
Right.
So let's go through the rest
and
of
I believe that Ernie is still being challenged. He was assigned a number. They picked their numbers this past week, I think Monday or Tuesday. I forgot what day.
See, I would think if they're picking the number, if they're picking ballot positions, then the petition process must be done.
Well, I heard that there was still some question about Ernie, and that part I can't prove. I just heard. Mm-hmm. But the positions are for the mayoral positions. Richard Thomas drew number 1. Sean Patterson Howard drew number 2. I guess Clive Isley drew number 3. Andre Wallace drew number 4, and Ernie Davis drew number 5. So those are the 5 names as of now that will appear on the ballot. And there are 7 city council candidates that will appear. I don't remember the order, except that Your Honor Edwards is the last one, order-wise. I can't remember the names and the orders.
So as of now, we think it's a 5-way race.
As of now, according to the letter that went out May 1st from the Board of Election, it's a 5-way race for the city of Mount Vernon. And there was a poll recently done by some company, Tony, I forgot the...
I saw that. Wasn't that a while ago, though?
No, there was one just done.
Okay.
That was just done.
A new one.
A new one, yes. And because the old one, Andre was at some point, and Rich was like 2 points behind him, and then so on and so forth.
And was this published on Yonkers Voice or where?
Yonkers Tribune, I believe, originally posted it. And it shows Andre Wallace still in front. It shows Clive Isley now in second, which is the biggest difference in this. The biggest difference in this. Okay, so here the poll was tabulated between April 15th and May 2nd. Poll from among 799 registered Mount Vernon Democrats.
Yep.
The results are recognized in a range to variance of plus or minus 3 to 4%.
Right.
Andre Wallace. This is a Kiley group poll. I think Tony Kiley is the guy's name.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Wallace is 25%. Still in the lead. Who's been in the lead in most of the polls? Clive Isley has rocketed up to 20%. Richard Thomas has dropped to 20%. And Sean Patterson Howard, who was holding to maintaining a consistent 15-16%, has dropped down to 10%.
Right.
And who's the 5th candidate? Because they're not even here. Oh, Ernie Davis is not even mentioned in this poll.
No, he is 1%.
Oh, 1%. Okay, it's further down. And I think there's 23%. 23% still undecided. So, any comments or anything on that, on those two things?
Let me say that what can I say? The thoroughly embarrassing news of more malfeasance on the part of the Thomas administration leaves us very little reason to wonder why the mayor's popularity continues to fall. From the reports that the mayor had been racially profiled by Chase Bank when he attempted to deposit a check, which subsequently turned out to be rather questionable, as much that the mayor has to say, to further revelations that a high-placed senior Mount Vernon official was accused of embezzlement or credit card fraud on the order of $20,000+, I think, speaks to the lack of moral qualification of the entire Thomas administration.
And that's a commissioner position?
Yes.
Yeah.
My understanding was assistant commissioner in the police department again.
Wait. No, what are you talking about? I stepped away. What name did you just mention?
The person in Mount Vernon city government who pled guilty to defrauding to credit card fraud.
She was the parking bureau deputy police commissioner.
Yeah, she was deputy commissioner over the parking.
Right. So she,
And in that sense, listen, what can I say? I worked, I threw my heart and threw everything behind then candidate Thomas, hoping that if he were elected, he would begin to take some tentative steps towards the transformation of Mount Vernon politics. I was very clear. I was displeased with the previous leaders who had served in office, both Mayor Davis and Mayor Young before them. I was not at all confident if we continued with their under their leadership that we would have any turnaround, and I took a tremendous leap of faith
One Mayor Tom